welcome to another episode of MRD Chat Room. I have with me today His Excellency Comissiong, the Barbados Ambassador to the CARICOM community, also known as CARICOM. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Donna. It's a pleasure to be here.
Today we're talking about the Republic and implications, especially for young people. And to start, I've been talking with a number of young people, and I'm their mouthpiece today. They had lots of questions, and I'm passing them on to you. One of the first questions that came up is really, what's the difference between independence and being a republic?
That's a very good question, Donna. And trust the young people to raise that thorny question. The adults haven't even brought it up, but it's a very good question. I think to answer that, we need to focus on the concept of sovereignty, all right? So sovereignty is the power of a nation or state to do everything necessary to govern itself. Now, for a country to be deemed to be independent, that country must have freedom from outside control. So it must be self-governing, and it must have sovereignty. It must possess sovereignty. That is the power to do everything necessary to govern itself. And it has that sovereignty, and it has it free of any outside control from any other country. Now, so that's an independent nation. A republic is a nation in which sovereignty, the power to do everything necessary to govern itself, sovereignty is vested in the people of the nation as a collective body, the people, not in a monarch, not in an aristocracy, not in a dictator, not in an oligarchy, but in the people. And if I may give you the full definition, and I'm going to quote here, a republic is a nation in which supreme power is held by the collective body of the people and their elected representatives, and which has an elected or democratically nominated president as its head of state, rather than a monarch or other non-elected hereditary head of state. So if we could wrap our heads around that, for a country to be independent, the country must have sovereignty. It must have all of the power to govern itself, and it must be exercising that power free from any outside control. A republic must have that as well. But a republic has to have more than that, because in order to qualify as a republic, that sovereignty must actually vest in the people and their elected representatives. So in other words, you could have an independent nation that has sovereignty and is free from outside control, but that sovereignty is vested in a king or queen. So you could have an independent nation, but it is ruled by a king or queen. It is free from outside control, but the sovereignty is not vested in the collective body of people. It is vested in a king or queen or a special family and aristocracy. A republic says no. Not only do you have to be independent, but in addition to being independent, the power, the official power within the state must vest in the people and their elected representatives, not in any king or queen or aristocracy. So that's the difference.
Okay, Now, with that difference clearly stated, came another question that I thought was quite interesting. Right now, when we become a republic, we are going to have a president. Now, they liken the president in the republic with the kind of president that they have in the US. But what we have here is the elections that everybody participates in for the prime minister. Will we ever get to a point where the people will have an elections to elect the president?
All right, well, and so it's important to have a good understanding of this, because for Barbados to qualify as a republic, the president of Barbados has to be democratically selected. In other words, let's say we were to decide in Barbados, look, we don't want the Queen of England as our head of state, but we're going to establish our own special family, you know, our own royal family, a Bajan royal family. Then that would not be a republic, because we would be following the same principle of a hereditary head of state. A person becomes head of state because they belong to some special family, quote unquote royal family. That's not a republic. So for us to qualify as a republic, our new president must be selected through some form of democratic process that is rooted in the people. And the democratic process that we have decided upon, we have said, look, we're not gonna have the people voting directly for the president, but the people will vote in general elections for members of parliament. So the people will select the members of parliament, and then we're going to give the members of parliament the power to vote for and to elect the person to become president. So it is still a democratic process. It is not a direct election by the people, but it is still an indirect election by the people, in that we, the people, we elect the electors. When we elect people to parliament, those people that we elect then become the electors, who will in turn elect the president. So that is the system we have chosen for ourselves up to this point. You asked me, might we change that system and go to something else? For example, a system in which the people themselves directly elect the president? Well, the government has said that come January next year, Barbados is going to go through a year-long process of national discussions and consultations about our constitution. And at that time, Barbadians will have the opportunity, if they feel that they would like to move to a system where the people themselves get to elect the president, that would be the time when they could put that idea on the table. So I guess we will see, but I think we have to wait until next year and to have that national discussion, and then to see what ideas emerge out of that national discussion.
Which brings me on to another question from the same age group, 13, 14. In their words exactly, who's bigger, president or the prime minister?
Oh, in our system, the prime minister is definitely bigger, right? So, okay, in our system, we have a head of government, which is the prime minister, and we have a head of state, which is the president. In terms of who in terms of who has more power, definitely the head of government has more power. The prime minister and her ministers of government, they have a lot of power, because these are the people who can decide to impose taxes, to remove taxes. They can decide that Barbados is going to build a school or a highway. You know, they can do real things of substance. The head of state doesn't have that kind of power. That kind of power I just spoke about is real, what we call executive power. The head of state doesn't have that same kind of power, and that is why we tend to say that we have a ceremonial head of state, you know. So yes, it is a ceremonial role. The head of state presides over, like, you know, the opening of parliament, and if a person becomes a centenarian, a lot of ceremonial duties, but it's not only ceremonial. The head of state does also have some substantial functions. For example, in our system, the head of state appoints 7 senators. In our system, the head of state appoints a local privy council that has the power to decide if a prison sentence, somebody should be excused of a prison sentence, and so forth. The head of state is the one who, after there are general elections, will look at the composition of the parliament and decide who has the power that they should be appointed prime minister, who has the support that they should be appointed leader of the opposition. So the point is, even though our head of state does not have anywhere near the power of the head of government and her ministers, the head of state is not only ceremonial, it is largely ceremonial, but still has some important functions to perform. But the idea of a head of state, right? Now, so we could ask the question, well, what really is a head of state? A head of state is really the public representative who is deemed to embody the unity of the nation and the legitimacy of the nation. So whereas like a head of government is a very political person, enmeshed in partisan politics, you know, you have BLP and DLP, and so the head of government comes out of that partisan competitive politics. The head of state is supposed to be a different kind of figure. The head of state is supposed to be above partisan politics, and it's supposed to be the public official that is deemed to embody the unity of the nation, the legitimacy of the nation. So we have to ask ourselves, can an English woman or man living thousands of miles, born in England, living thousands of miles away in Britain, can such a person really embody the unity and legitimacy of the Barbadian nation? Can that person embody our struggle as a people, our aspirations, our culture? I think not. And this is one of the reasons why it is so important that we have our own native Barbadian head of state who can truly embody our unity as a people and a nation.
Great, great. Keeping with that same question about presidents, will there be a vice president in the event that the president becomes incapacitated in some way or goes on vacation or anything like that? Again, some of my kids have really been surprising me. They watched the other day when the president of the United States underwent some form of a medical procedure, and the vice president was president for 85 minutes. Okay, first woman president, 85 minutes. And that question came up. Does Barbados have a place for a vice president? And if they do, where would the vice president live?
Okay, well, first of all, we have to explain that in the United States, they have a different kind of president. They have an executive president. Okay, in the United States, the office of president really combines the office of head of government and head of state. So they have a different system. Their president is a combination. Their president would be a combination of Prime Minister Mia Mottley and our president, Dame Sandra Mason, right? So there's a different kind of system. We don't have that kind of president. That's called an executive presidency, where you combine in one office, one person, the head of government and the head of state. We don't have that. We have separated them. So in their system, they actually elect. At the same time they elect a president, they elect a vice president. Our system is different. So we are only electing a president, but we do have provisions for if that president becomes temporarily incapacitated. I have here the Act of Parliament. I'm trying to see if I can find it. Okay, for example, it's better for me to quote it. Now this is actually the when our government went to Parliament last month to amend our constitution to move away from the Queen and to provide for our own president. This is part of the legislation that they passed, right? And they said in that legislation, where the office of president is vacant or the president is incapable of performing the functions of president by reason of illness or absence from Barbados, or is on vacation leave, or for any other reason is unable to perform the functions of the office, the Prime Minister shall, after consultation with the leader of the opposition, appoint a person who is qualified to be elected to the office of president to act during the vacancy or as the case may be during the absence of the president. So where there's an illness or some kind of vacancy, temporary vacancy, the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition will get together and the Prime Minister will consult with the leader of the opposition, but the Prime Minister will have the power to choose who is the person that on a temporary basis will sit in for the president until the president can resume her functions.
Fantastic. I am so happy to be hearing this on behalf of some of these students. They had lots of questions about age as well. One student who is about 13 years old asked if after the Republic, will the legal age in Barbados change from 16, from 16 to 18 or to 21, or will it remain 16 or will it go down? Because in his words, if it goes down, he's all for a referendum, he's gonna be there, right?
Well, it depends what they mean by legal age, right? Because we have different legal ages. So for example, I don't want to tell them this, but the legal age of consent for sexual relations is 16.
Yes.
The legal age to vote is 18, you know? And so you're deemed to be an adult at 18. So the question could be, since, 16 is a legal age to give consent, I mean, something as important as sexual relations and all of that, shouldn't the age for voting not similarly be reduced to 16 years? When we last had a constitutional commission back in 1996, we had the Henry Ford Commission, okay, for the young people. In 1996, the then government established a commission that was led by Sir Henry Ford to look at our constitution. And that commission held town hall meetings and examined our constitution. In 1996, I was 36 years old. And my colleagues and I, we embraced the opportunity of the Henry Ford Commission to have our say. And we came together, we formed something called the People's Forum on Constitutional Reform. We held our own town hall meetings. In fact, we held 8 town hall meetings, and we came up with our own ideas as to the changes that we would like to see. We wrote up a report, and we submitted our report to the Henry Ford Commission. And one of the things we asked for in our report was that the age of voting should be reduced from 18 years to 16 years. Now, that was not done because it's still at 18, right? But that may be something that this young generation may wish to put on the table next year when the country goes through this national consultation on the Constitution. But I want to say to the young people, in 1996, I was 36, and I grasped the opportunity provided back then. Now, 25 years later, I have children who are in their early 30s, and I'm saying to my children, look, when I was your age or just a little older, we grasped this opportunity, you know, to have our say. It is now for your generation to similarly grasp the opportunity that will be coming your way next year to have your say about the kind of Barbados, the kind of governance system you would like to see in Barbados.
Great. I just have two more questions. They could be pretty expansive, but one of them is from my 18-year-old son. I'm going to admit this, my 18-year-old son. He basically says, okay, what's going to happen when we wake up on December the 1st? He said the reason he's asking that is because the powers that be, they have traveled. They have been outside of Barbados for at least the last 2 years, and they were seeing Barbados in the context of the external environment, trade, international relations. But he and his lot have been on this rock the entire time, and they only know about the current local relations. And he says he can't mesh the two of them together. They want more information about what's going to happen here for them when they wake up in the new Republic of Barbados on December the 1st. What does that really mean?
Well, what we are doing is more or less a symbolic change, but it's a symbolic change that is very important, because right now, okay, without making this change, what we have, we say we are independent, but realistically, it is what I call a constitutionally compromised independence. Because if you're independent, but your head of state is still a foreigner, basically the monarch of your former colonial master, it means that you have really, that's a compromise. You really don't have full, in a sense, you really don't have full independence, because remember, sovereignty is the power to do everything necessary to govern yourself. And part of, because I made the point that the head of state is not only ceremonial, they do have some important political functions as well. And if you are leaving that power in the hands of a foreign monarch, it means that you have compromised, honestly, your independence. So for us, for our own self-respect, what we are doing is basically saying, look, you know, we are a fully sovereign, independent nation, totally in control of our own affairs, so that we could have that sense of pride as Barbadians, you know? And so I think that sense of national pride, that having our own native Barbadian head of state, democratically elected by us, I think that is invaluable. I remember, Donna, many years ago, I remember I visited Syria. I was in a taxi, and this Syrian taxi driver was asking me about Barbados, and I was feeling very good, telling him about what a wonderful country we are, and we have free education and free health care, and we're independent. And then he asked me, so who is the head of state? And then I had to tell him, well, the Queen of England. He said, but I thought you told me Barbados was independent. I said, yes, we're independent, but you know, the Queen of England is still our head of state. And the man thought I was totally nuts. He told me you don't know what you are talking about. How can you be independent if the Queen of England is your head of state? So people in the outside world can't even understand that concept, you know. And quite frankly, I felt very embarrassed. I felt very embarrassed. And so yes, so symbolically it is important. But I guess the question then goes on, beyond that symbolism now, what are the real, can we look forward to some concrete changes? And what I would say is that, yes, but it's up to us now. It's up to us to determine what we make of our new Republic of Barbados.
Excuse me one second. Excuse me, don't mean to cut you, right? Not only has my son, but other children have asked as well. For example, will the name of the hospital change from Queen Elizabeth Hospital to something else? What about the roads? What about things like citizenship? There are some children who are dual citizens of two different countries, Barbados and another country. Is that going to change on December the 1st or maybe afterwards? Things like
none of that has changed. So the change basically just pertains to removing the Queen of England as our head of state and replacing her with our own Bajan head of state, democratically elected by us. That's basically all that we have done. I shouldn't say basically all, because what we have done, we have done something called the patriation of our constitution. In other words, what we have done, our constitution, our independence constitution was really an order issued by the Queen of England back in 1966. And that has been a source of discomfort for us, because as an independent nation, how could we have a constitution that technically is emanating from the Queen of England? So when we amended the Constitution last month, what we did, we brought the amended Constitution fully under the authority of the Parliament of Barbados. So that's another thing that we have done that's very important as well. We have patriated the Constitution of Barbados. We have made it a creation of the sovereign Parliament of Barbados. So that's important. But the other things you speak about, no, none of that has changed. But it will be up to us. As I said, we are going to have to determine for ourselves what we make of the new Republic of Barbados. So we are going to have to determine, do we want to get rid of those colonial street names and place names? I don't think we would get rid of the name Queen Elizabeth Hospital, because you know, we name that. When you name something to you know, we name that, we of our own volition, we name that to honor this particular person. So I don't really see us getting rid of that. But some of these street names, you go to Bank Hall, for example, and you hear Prince of Wales Road and Buckingham Avenue and so forth, Queen Mary Street. We independent Barbados did not put those names in place. And so we would have a discussion among ourselves. Do we really want to keep those names, those street names that are really a relic of a bygone colonial era? Or would we want to lift up some of our own local heroes and attach their names to those streets? But that's part of the conversation I think we're going to have as a nation and a people next year. So I think all of those things will be on the cards, but it's for us to discuss and come to the decisions that we wish as a people.
And the last question has to do with something that is near and dear to the hearts of almost every single young person I've spoken to, and that's cyberspace. Okay. online 24/7. And they're asking about what's this thing with the metaverse? And Barbados being the first country, I do believe, to have an ambassador, not
Embassy.
looking for
An embassy.
an embassy in the metaverse. What does that mean for them? Is it someplace where they can actually visit online? Is it going to be a situation where, because of the metaverse, they'll be able to apply their content in places like Britain or YouTube, and would the metaverse be a place that will help them to make money off of that content? And these are children who are hearing about things like NFTs and cryptocurrency, and they're interested. So when we started to talk about the metaverse with respect to the Republic, they really lit up. So can you share something on that for us, please?
Well, this is not my area of expertise, but my understanding is that the metaverse is going to be the replacement of today's internet. That the metaverse is going to be the next edition of the virtual reality, but that it will be much more profound than the internet that we experience today. And it will be utilizing all the blockchain technology. It will be an environment, a virtual environment in which cryptocurrencies will be at play and so forth. So Barbados is being very futuristic. Barbados has seen that this is what is coming, that this is what is going to replace the internet that we know today. And Barbados has positioned itself to be in the vanguard of that movement. So we have said that we're going to take this initiative, and we're going to be the first country in the world to actually come up with the concept of establishing a Barbados embassy, not as a physical building in Ghana or New York or London, but as a virtual reality embassy in this what is the upcoming new and more sophisticated version of the internet. I believe that it is going to position Barbados to attract business entities who are dealing in cryptocurrencies and blockchain and so forth, because they're going to be intrigued about this country that has embraced their technology, their vision of the future of the virtual world. And I believe it is going to put Barbados in a good place to benefit from trade and business and investment opportunities utilizing these new cryptocurrencies, and the entrepreneurs who are part of that technological world. So kudos to Barbados. It has people all over the world talking about Barbados as this small Caribbean nation, but obviously a nation with a lot of initiative and foresight and vision.
Thank you so much for the time you spent with us today. And I'm sure that when our young people get to see this, they're going to have a much better understanding of some of the questions that they've had. And they're also feeling as though they belong. As I mentioned to you maybe off camera before, it took a bit of pulling at first to get young people to even talk about this referendum. I'm sorry, the whole Republic. Because they have this idea that, whatever happens, it's not really for me. It's not the people think. But really and truly, when we sat down, we started to hear their questions. They are a major part of this, because this is going to affect their lives from the midnight onward. This is going to be a different Barbados. And it's a Barbados that they're going to help shape. And with that, I'm so glad we had this time together. And I just want to say to all those MRD chat rooms, stay tuned, because I know this is not our final chat with His Excellency David Comissiong, Barbados' Ambassador to the character.
I embrace any opportunity to speak to our young people. I'm going to end by encouraging them to embrace the opportunity of this national consultation next year. And what they should be doing all like now is trying to think through what are the basic principles and values of a republic. What are the basic, because that will then guide the thinking and the conversation next year. And when you think about it, you're talking people participation, democracy, national identity, national self-confidence, social equality, because we're getting away from any this social snobbery of special family and special class. Republic says no, democratic, people power. So those are the kinds of things they should be thinking about now to help guide them in that conversation come January 2022.
Thank you ever so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our episode of MRD Chat Room for today. Again, I thank you, Your Excellency, David Comissiong, and Donna Tull. Until next time. Goodbye.